The United States of America 1 dime dated 1973 with a D mint mark refers to a 1973 D Roosevelt dime, struck at the Denver Mint, and it's a classic example of modern U.S. coinage that blends historical symbolism, practical metallurgy, and collectible nuance. The obverse, front, of the coin features President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, whose portrait was introduced in 1946 to honor his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II as well as his role in founding the March of Dimes, which directly connects to the denomination itself. Above Roosevelt's head appears the national motto "In God We Trust," a phrase officially adopted as a standard U.S. coin inscription in the 20th century, reflecting the country's cultural and historical emphasis on faith and moral guidance. To the left of Roosevelt's portrait is the word liberty, symbolizing personal freedom and democratic values, while the date 1973 appears to the right, with a small D mint mark just above the date indicating it was produced in Denver rather than Philadelphia, which used no mint mark that year, or San Francisco. The reverse, back, of the dime displays a torch, flanked by an olive branch on the left and an oak branch on the right, a powerful trio of symbols representing liberty, peace, and strength, respectively. Encircling this design is the inscription United States of America, while E pluribus unum, out of many, one, appears above the torch, reinforcing the idea of unity among states, and 1 dime is clearly stated at the bottom to denote its value. Unlike earlier dimes minted before 1965, the 1973 D dime contains no silver and is composed of a clad structure, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving it a total weight of 2.27 grams, a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and a reeded edge designed to deter counterfeiting. In 1973, the Denver Mint produced approximately 217,498,000 dimes, making this a very high mintage coin, which means it is not rare in circulated condition. However, an uncirculated example, especially one with full original mint luster, sharp details in Roosevelt's hair, clean fields, and no bag marks, can still be desirable to collectors assembling date and mint sets. While its face value is 10 cents, an uncirculated 1973 D dime typically holds a modest premium, usually ranging from $1 to $5, with higher values possible for coins graded MS67 or above by professional services like PCGS or NGC, where pristine condition becomes the defining factor. Historically, the year 1973 itself sits in an interesting economic moment for the United States, marked by inflation pressures and the aftermath of abandoning the gold standard, which makes everyday coinage from this era a quiet witness to major monetary shifts. In short, the 1973 D Roosevelt dime may not be rare or silver-rich, but in uncirculated condition it represents a clean, intact snapshot of American values, design continuity, and minting practices in the post-silver coinage era, small in size, humble in value, yet dense with national symbolism and history. Next top. The United States of America 1 dime dated 1980 with a P mint mark refers to a 1980 P Roosevelt dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and it represents a mature stage of modern U.S. coinage where design, symbolism, and mass production had settled into a long-running standard that Americans were deeply familiar with in everyday life. The obverse of the coin carries the left-facing portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a design created by engraver John R. Sinek and first introduced in 1946 shortly after Roosevelt's death, chosen both to honor his leadership through the Great Depression and World War II and to recognize his strong association with the March of Dimes, the public health campaign that fought polio and gave the dime special symbolic meaning. Along the left edge of Roosevelt's profile is the inscription Liberty, expressing the foundational American ideal of personal freedom, while above the portrait appears the national motto "In God We Trust," formally mandated on U.S. coinage in the mid-20th century and intended to reflect the moral and spiritual heritage of the nation. To the right of the portrait is the date 1980, and just above it is the P mint mark, which by this time had become standard on Philadelphia coins, a change introduced in 1980 for most denominations except the cent, making this issue historically notable as part of that transition. The reverse of the dime features a central torch, symbolizing liberty and enlightenment, flanked by an olive branch on the left for peace and an oak branch on the right for strength and endurance, with E pluribus unum, out of many, 1, arched above the torch to emphasize unity among the states, United States of America encircling the top rim, and 1 dime clearly stated at the bottom to identify the denomination. By 1980, all Roosevelt dimes were composed of a copper-nickel-clad alloy rather than silver, consisting of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its familiar silvery appearance while keeping production costs low. The coin weighs 2.27 grams, measures 17.91 millimeters in diameter, and has a reeded edge, a long-standing anti-counterfeiting feature carried over from earlier precious metal coinage. The Philadelphia Mint produced a very large number of these coins, approximately 735 million dimes in 1980, which means the issue is extremely common in circulated condition and firmly classed as a non-rare modern coin, yet an uncirculated example still holds collector interest, particularly if it retains full mint luster, sharp strike details and Roosevelt's hair and ear, clean fields, and minimal contact marks from mint storage. In terms of value, a typical uncirculated 1980p dime usually sells for around $1 to $3, while coins professionally graded at very high levels, such as MS-67 or MS-68, can command higher premiums due to the difficulty of finding nearly flawless survivors among such high mintage issues. Historically, the year 1980 places this dime in a period of economic stress in the United States, marked by high inflation, energy crises, and shifting monetary policy, and although the coin itself is humble and widely available, it quietly reflects an era when clad coinage had fully replaced silver and American currency was designed for durability and efficiency rather than intrinsic metal value. In essence, an uncirculated 1980p Roosevelt dime is not a treasure because of rarity or precious content, but because it is a well-preserved artifact of everyday American life, carrying enduring national mottos, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and "E Pluribus Unum," and condensing history, symbolism, and economics into a small, familiar 10-cent piece. Next top. The 1983p United States one-dime coin, commonly called the Roosevelt dime, is an interesting and historically layered piece of American coinage, even though at first glance it looks like an everyday circulation coin, and when described as until you are likely referring to uncirculated condition, meaning it never entered general use and therefore retains its original mint luster and sharp details. This dime was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which is why it carries no mint mark. Philadelphia did not use a P mint mark on dimes until 1980, after which the P became standard, so 1983 dimes do have a P, making this a post-change issue, and it belongs to the long-running Roosevelt dime series that began in 1946 as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, honoring his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II as well as his strong association with the March of Dimes, a campaign dedicated to combating polio, the disease that paralyzed him. On the obverse front of the 1983p dime is a left-facing portrait of Roosevelt designed by John R. Sinek, with the word Liberty prominently inscribed along the left edge, the national motto "In God We Trust" placed horizontally near Roosevelt's chin, and the date 1983 positioned to the right of the portrait, all of which are crisp and well-defined on uncirculated examples. The reverse, back, features a torch at the center symbolizing liberty, flanked by an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch representing strength and independence, with the inscription "E Pluribus Unum," out of many, 1, running horizontally across the upper field, United States of America along the rim, and 1 dime at the bottom, clearly stating the denomination. Composition-wise, the 1983p dime is made of a clad copper-nickel alloy, consisting of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core, a standard introduced in 1965 when silver was removed from circulating dimes due to rising bullion prices, giving the coin a total weight of 2.27 grams, a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and a reeded edge designed both for tradition and for anti-counterfeiting purposes. Historically, the year 1983 is notable in U.S. coinage because the mint did not issue official uncirculated mint sets that year due to budget constraints, which makes truly uncirculated 1983p dimes somewhat more desirable to collectors than typical modern circulation issues, since the only way to obtain them in high grade was to pull them directly from bank rolls or original mint bags. the Philadelphia Mint struck over 647 million Roosevelt dimes in 1983, a very large mintage reflecting heavy circulation demand during a period of economic recovery in the early Reagan era. Yet despite this high mintage, coins in mint state 67 or higher can command noticeable premiums due to the difficulty of finding examples free of contact marks, weak strikes, or surface abrasions. From a value perspective, a typical uncirculated 1983 P dime may be worth face value to a few dollars, while exceptionally well-preserved examples certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC can sell for significantly higher amounts, especially if they display strong luster, sharp torch bands, and clean fields. Culturally and symbolically, this coin embodies multiple layers of American identity, with liberty, unity, faith, and democracy all represented through its inscriptions and imagery, making it more than just pocket change, but rather a small metallic snapshot of American ideals during the early 1980s. Overall, the 1983 P uncirculated Roosevelt dime stands as a solid example of late 20th century U.S. minting, valued not for precious metal content but for its historical context, condition, rarity, and its role in a series that has become one of the longest-running and most recognizable coin designs in United States history. Next top. The United States of America. One dime dated 1985 with a P mint mark refers to a 1985 P Roosevelt dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and it represents a fully established phase of modern American coinage in which design consistency, national symbolism, and high-volume production came together to create the everyday money used by millions of people across the country. The obverse of the coin bears the familiar left-facing portrait of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, designed by John R. Sinek and first introduced in 1946 as a tribute to Roosevelt's leadership during some of the most difficult periods in U.S. history, the Great Depression and World War II, and to his personal battle with polio, which made him closely associated with the March of Dimes, the charitable movement that ultimately inspired the choice of the dime for his portrait. To the left of Roosevelt's profile appears the word liberty, a core American principle symbolizing individual rights and democratic freedom, while above the portrait is the national motto "In God We Trust," reflecting the country's historical emphasis on faith and moral values in public life. To the right of the portrait is the date 1985, with the P mint mark just above it, indicating that the coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which by the 1980s routinely placed its mint mark on dimes as part of a broader effort to clearly identify mint origins. The reverse of the 1985 P dime features a powerful and carefully balanced design centered on a flaming torch, symbolizing liberty, enlightenment, and the enduring spirit of freedom, flanked by an olive branch on the left, representing peace, and an oak branch on the right, representing strength and stability. Above this central imagery is the Latin motto E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, a phrase that captures the idea of unity among the states, while United States of America curves along the upper rim and one dime is inscribed at the bottom to clearly state the denomination. Like all Roosevelt dimes minted after 1965, the 1985 P dime contains no silver and is composed of a clad metal structure with outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving it a total weight of 2.27 grams, a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and a reeded edge, which historically served as a deterrent to coin clipping when precious metals were still used in U.S. currency. The Philadelphia Mint produced an exceptionally large quantity of dimes in 1985, well over 1 billion pieces, making this issue extremely common in circulation and ensuring that it was readily available for everyday transactions during a decade characterized by economic recovery, consumer growth, and the increasing dominance of electronic banking alongside physical cash. Because of this massive mintage, a circulated 1985 P dime typically holds only its face value, but an uncirculated example, especially one that has never entered circulation and still shows full original mint luster, crisp strike details, and minimal contact marks, can be of interest to collectors who focus on date and mint sets or on high-grade modern coinage. In the numismatic market, an uncirculated 1985 P dime usually carries a modest premium of around $1 to $4, while coins that achieve very high professional grades, such as MS-67 or MS-68, may be worth significantly more due to their scarcity and near-perfect condition. despite the enormous original production. From a historical perspective, the 1985 P. Roosevelt dime is a small but tangible artifact of mid-1980s America, a time marked by technological change, Cold War tensions, and shifting economic policies, and while it lacks the intrinsic metal value of earlier silver dimes, it makes up for that by embodying continuity, national identity, and the everyday experience of American life. In essence, an uncirculated 1985 P dime is not prized for rarity or precious content, but for its clean preservation and its role as a durable carrier of enduring national ideals, liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and E Pluribus Unum, all compressed into a simple 10-cent coin that quietly connects history, symbolism, and daily commerce. Next top. The 1988 United States one-dime coin, widely known as the Roosevelt dime, is a standard circulation issue of late 20th century American coinage, yet it carries a surprisingly rich blend of history, symbolism, design detail, and numismatic context, especially when described as untilled, which is most likely meant to indicate uncirculated condition, meaning the coin has never been used in everyday transactions and therefore retains its original mint luster, sharper details, and minimal wear. This dime was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark located on the obverse to the right of Roosevelt's neck, and it forms part of the Roosevelt dime series that began in 1946, introduced shortly after the death of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt to honor his legacy as a four-term president and his instrumental role in founding and supporting the March of Dimes, a public health campaign that fought polio, the disease that personally afflicted him. The obverse of the 1988 D dime features a left-facing bust of Roosevelt designed by John R. Sinek, whose initials JS appear subtly at the base of the portrait, with the word Liberty running along the left rim of the coin, the national motto "In God We Trust" inscribed horizontally near the lower left of the portrait, and the date 1988 positioned clearly to the right, all elements that appear especially crisp on uncirculated examples. The reverse design is equally symbolic and unchanged since the series debut, showing a central torch representing liberty and enlightenment, flanked by an olive branch symbolizing peace and an oak branch representing strength, endurance, and independence, with E Pluribus Unum, out of many, one, stretching across the upper portion, United States of America along the rim, and one dime at the bottom denoting its value. Compositionally, the 1988 D dime is made of a copper-nickel clad structure, consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, resulting in a total metallic makeup of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, with a weight of 2.27 grams, a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and a reeded edge, a feature historically used to prevent coin clipping and still retained as a traditional design element. In terms of production, the Denver Mint struck over 494 million dimes in 1988, reflecting the continued high demand for small-denomination coins in circulation during the late 1980s, a period marked by economic expansion, technological growth, and the final years of the Cold War, all of which provide broader historical context for the coin's era. Despite the high mintage, collectors often seek uncirculated 1988 D dimes because many coins from this period entered circulation quickly and developed contact marks, dull luster, or weak strikes, making high-grade examples, particularly those graded mint state 67 or higher, relatively scarce and more valuable within the Roosevelt dime series. In typical uncirculated condition, the coin's market value generally ranges from face value to a few dollars, but premium specimens certified by professional grading services can command higher prices depending on eye appeal, strike quality, and surface preservation. Symbolically, the inscriptions "Liberty, in God We Trust," and "E Pluribus Unum" reflect foundational American ideals of freedom, faith, unity, and democratic strength, reinforcing the dime's role not just as currency but as a miniature expression of national identity. Overall, the 1988 D uncirculated Roosevelt dime stands as a representative example of modern U.S. coinage, common yet meaningful, valued by collectors for its condition, historical placement, and continuity within one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history, quietly carrying decades of symbolism and craftsmanship in a coin small enough to fit in the palm of your hand.